welcome to the Onside Kick. Ricky Widmer here along with Dave Oster.
Knock, knock.
And Mark Weber.
How's it going, guys?
And we're here with a full football podcast for you guys. Going to be talking some NFL, some college. We have coaches getting fired, coaches getting hired, contract extensions here, and of course, playoffs in the NFL and the BCS National Championship game coming up on Monday. But guys, to start the show, we're here in Chicago. Biggest news this week, Jay Cutler, 7-year deal with the Chicago Bears. And the most interesting point to this contract that I see, he went with the non-Tom Brady route. I'm going to go no signing bonus and have everything in my salary.
Well, I mean, you put it as if he specifically said, I don't want a signing bonus. We don't know if it was Emery said, no, we're just going to give it all to you in actual salary. No signing bonus here. We don't have the money or whatever. You don't really know what that situation was. I think it's interesting because it just shows the time that we're in of quarterbacks. Quarterbacks get $100 million deals. That's just what happens now. Ever since Mike Vick, that's how it goes. $126 million, $54 million of which was guaranteed over those 3 years pretty much. People want to say it's a little long to have a 7-year deal, especially for Jay Cutler, guy who might be kind of injury prone. But essentially, I say this is about a 3 or 4 year deal.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to look at it. It's kind of like an insurance plan ending tacked onto the end. So I think Cutler, I don't know, it was an interesting thing. We've been going back and forth about Cutler and the Bears for the past couple of weeks. But I think it is kind of a smart move because there isn't another move available to the Bears at this point. They really did too well to get one of the top-tier quarterbacks in the draft. And as far as free agency goes, there's not a single guy there I see to trust. So I think Cutler still gives you the best chance to win. And I think he's absolutely could win a Super Bowl with this team.
Well, Mark, you said, and I didn't even think about this until you said, we're in the era of quarterbacks where you can expect them to get $120 million. I thought of the quarterback they got the big deal last year, Joe Flacco. Looked at his contract, $6 million, $120.6 million. That is 0.1 less than what Jay Cutler got. So Cutler got one more year than Flacco and $100,000 more dollars. But the interesting point is, Flacco won a Super Bowl. Jay Cutler didn't even make the playoffs.
Yeah, but I think Flacco winning the Super Bowl was kind of just it forced their hand more so than the Bears. It was like, okay,
yeah,
this
but
guy
then why would you give him that much money if he didn't win the Super Bowl? That's
Jay Cutler had a better season this season than Joe Flacco. He's saying, look, this guy won the Super Bowl. I'm a better quarterback.
How many games did Jay miss compared to Flacco last year?
Doesn't matter. Better numbers.
But he missed games which the Bears, if the Bears, they went 2-2 in Cutler's absence, you could argue they could have went maybe 3-1 or could have went 4-0 without him. But I mean,
they
yes,
didn't go
McCown.
4-0, though. They didn't go 3-1.
No, I know, but you could argue that they could have done better with Jay, and you have Flacco on the other side, who in his contract year, he was no injuries.
Yeah, but you can't always chalk it up to, okay, this guy didn't miss any games this season, so he's worth the money. I think you got to take the risk on Cutler. You look at another contract out there that was thrown down last year was Tony Romo, who I think is pretty much a mirror to Jay Cutler, a little weaker arm than Cutler does, but play style is the same gunslinger style. They're always looking for the big play down the field and questionable decision-making, but they always make it interesting. And I think his contract is almost spot on to Jay Cutler's, and it's probably what the Bears use to kind of build up the framework for this Cutler deal.
Yeah, especially because Tony Romo getting $55 million guaranteed, Jay Cutler obviously getting $54. So if Tony Romo had gotten the 7th year on his deal, that $108 million would have probably been about exactly the same as what Jay Cutler got, the $126.
See, and this is just looking at Jay Cutler by himself. I brought up injuries, and that's my biggest thing with this contract is Cutler's only had one full season with the Bears, like full season, no injuries, and that was his first year with the Bears. Ever since, there has been some sort of an injury that keeps Jay out for anything, any amount of time. And if it's 3 weeks, 4 weeks, if it's the second half of an NFC Championship game against the Packers.
Don't you dare speak ill of him for that.
There have always been an injury that has kept Jay out. So because of that, why give him this money? Why give him the years?
It's not Jay's fault. That's the coaching. That's the staff not having a proper offensive line. It's not Jay's fault that there's no one in front of him willing to block.
We literally threw him to the dogs for 3 years. I mean, it's absolutely horrendous how bad our offensive line was at the time. But again, what other option could the Bears take at this point? And I think you got to look around and be like, well, no, Cutler's the best thing, and he's a good quarterback.
Yeah, but then why to argue that, why give him 7 years then? Why not give him maybe like 3 or 4?
I think you have to lock him down because he has that potential upside. He has one of the, if not the strongest arm in the NFL. He can make every throw there is, and he kind of has that extra something that puts him in a different category from the good quarterbacks. I don't want to call him top tier or whatever.
He's in the middle. He's in the middle. He's in no man's land.
He's the top. He has the potential to just absolutely blow people out of the water, and that's what we're paying for is the potential right now. Even though this is his second 7-year contract that he signed in his career, interestingly enough. But I think it just leaves the door open for the Bears. It's win-win because if Cutler stays healthy, look, we're going to still pay you a respectable amount of money. We don't have to renegotiate in a couple of years and probably screw over one side or the other. And if he's not, it's okay because we can pretty much walk away at that point because it's not guaranteed money. We'll have our new quarterback, whoever it may be at the time.
See, and that's the big thing. You say if, and me sitting, maybe it's because I'm not a Bears fan.
Maybe it's because you're a Vikings fan.
Well, I'm not optimistic about Jay Cutler staying healthy. I'm not arguing with you that Jay Cutler, his arm and the plays he can make, he deserves the money in that respect, but it's, can he stay healthy? And in that regard, I say no.
He just needs to be healthy at the right time, though. That's the thing. And these days in the NFL, this was pretty much the year of the backup quarterback. I don't have an exact, but I'm pretty sure over 1/3 of the league had to use their backup quarterback to start a game this year. It's just becoming more of a necessity these days than it used to be. And it's guys are bigger, stronger, faster, hit harder. That's why we end up with all these new rules to try to protect the quarterbacks. But look, it's not the same game anymore. You need to have a backup quarterback because realistically, I wouldn't count on a quarterback starting an entire season without an injury. No, it's almost absurd at this point.
Yeah, but how many, and of course, like you said, no exact stat, but on the other side of that, how many teams, it'd be interesting to look at how many teams this year did have a quarterback start every game. And the names, when you say the quarterbacks that got injured, I think of Hoyer with the Browns. Many people are going to forget about that because it was so earlier in the season and because it's the Browns. But you have Hoyer, you had Terrell Pryor go down a little bit, and later on he didn't get the starting job because, the coaching staff, what he said, hates him. And then you also have Jay Cutler, Aaron Rodgers went down.
Mike Vick,
but that worked out fucking roses for Philadelphia because Nick Foles came out of nowhere. Well, I'm going to say out of nowhere.
He has performed extremely well, and I think he's probably like the number 3 quarterback in the NFL stat-wise for the season. I mean, it's just great system, matches up, and they've got the personnel to abuse it, and ride Shady McCoy into the playoffs.
But, I mean, going back to Jay Cutler's contract, the one thing I will say, because I've been kind of a negative Nancy with this topic, this contract is I'm going to call it a second blessing for Jay. Because early on this season, I saw it in Jay's eyes where he didn't buy into Trestman's system. And I feel like with this contract, Jay can be like, hey, I'm a true believer in this guy, the quarterback whisperer. He can help me be better. He can help this offense be better. And if we can just get a decent defense, not top 2 in the league like we used to have, but just a decent middle-of-the-ground defense, we could possibly win a Super Bowl.
I don't know about not buying into Trestman's system. I think from day one, Cutler was a huge buy. Just absolutely. Yeah, this guy's great because he plays off, because he wants the offense to do something. It was a change of pace for Cutler. I think he was all in. It was just Trestman was trying to erase some of Cutler's tendencies The throw to Marshall all day tendency, which still happens. I mean, it doesn't matter 5 people covering Marshall. He's just going to throw to him sometimes. I think that's what he probably wasn't a huge fan of, was him trying to break him in and try to, help fix the glaring issues that Cutler's still facing these days. But this offense is just an absolute monster. It is probably one of the top 3 offenses weapon-wise in the NFL right now.
Well, and who honestly saw Alshon Jeffrey? I'll be honest, in fantasy, I traded for Alshon Jeffrey in a fantasy trade that was just I guess I'll take him. And it looked out being wow, thank God I put him in there. Who saw him being the kind of number 2 receiver that he was this year?
Well, I think you got a guy that's just that big, and that's one of the things about the NFL now. You have a guy who's really tall, has great wingspan. Just get him the ability to jump up there and grab a ball. Got to have those good hands as well, but obviously, that's the thing that Alshon Jeffrey works really well for. And part of the thing that helped out Alshon was McCown goes in there, and Brandon Marshall's not McCown's guy. Alshon Jeffrey was McCown's guy. He was the guy that McCown wanted to throw to. So you have a situation like that, and all of a sudden his numbers light up because now he's the number 1 or number 2 receiver instead of in Jay Cutler's situation where he's number 3 behind Brandon Marshall and Martellus Bennett.
Yeah, but I mean, and this is going back to, Dave, it could be breaking tendencies, but at the same time, I think it's a little bit of the system, too, where Cutler, new guy comes into town and tells you, hey, you can't throw to this guy all the time, and you just look at him like, hey, me and this guy have played together here in Denver. Don't tell me I can't throw to my guy. And then he comes out, McCown comes in, and Cutler goes, oh, wait, look at who I have on this side of the field.
Yeah, no, I think that really was probably the best thing for Cutler. He got to see the offense work without him, and it gives him a different perspective. It gives him kind of a glimpse into the coach's view of, oh, so this is how our offense can work if we, don't throw the ball deep every play, don't throw it to Marshall every play. We saw a full array of the offensive weapons. We saw Forte get more involved in the passing game. And we saw, I don't want to say a diminished role for Bennett, but it seems like Bennett was kind of overshadowed during that time. But no, I think Cutler definitely picked up a lot, and it was, I don't want to call it a blessing in disguise, but because no injury is, you never want to see your number 1 on the bench. But it was clear Cutler wasn't healthy enough to play, so I think he took the time, saw Jeffrey's potential, and was like, all right, this guy's a legit big. Absolutely going to buy into it, feed the beast.
See, and one of the things that you got to look at too with this is if you're sitting there at home going, well, why did the Bears do this? Why didn't they look at other options? Well, in free agency, there's no big name in quarterback that teams are looking to sign. I think Jake Locker is the only one that people are kind of talking about this early. And in the draft, unless you've got I'm going to say top 15 pick in the draft, don't expect to get Bridgewater, Bortle.
So, I mean, they're at the very back of that. But honestly, I would say in the top 10, you're going to have 3 quarterbacks taken.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, do you really trust that, who's going to be the 4th guy out? Is it going to be, or the 5th guy out in that case? Is it going to be Derek Carr? Is it going to be Bortles?
Well, and, one of the things that I think about is look at the guys that have come from the lower 9, I'm going to say the non-big conferences, the non-major conferences. You have Flacco, Delaware. You have blanking Roethlisberger, Miami of Ohio, a MAC school. So, I mean, there are quarterbacks here that fit the build. Yeah, Cutler was a Cutler. You can even put Eli Manning in that because Ole Miss wasn't. Yeah, they played in the SEC, but they were at the bottom of the SEC. And then you have Tony Romo coming out of Eastern Illinois, and there are guys in this draft that I kind of look and I go, okay, will they fit that kind of a mold? But would Trustman want to go? A guy like David Fales from San Jose State, Jimmy Garpolo from Eastern Illinois, or even Derek Carr, because Fresno isn't a major college football program.
Definitely. I mean, Derek Carr, obviously, I've said it multiple times on the podcast, and especially out of those guys, he's the one I would, have faith in, but he's a top 10 pick. That's a top 10 pick without a doubt. Bears aren't in that. Bears at pick number 14 are hoping that basically they're going to do the Christian Ponder thing. It's a guy who we just say, well, he's second-round talent, maybe even third-round talent, but we want a quarterback. We got to take this guy.
Yeah, they'd have to reach for a quarterback at that point. I kind of disagree with that, though. I think we need to go all in on defense in rounds 1 and 2 and kind of look for...
All in on defense.
Oh, without a doubt. You need
I think we need to go...
cornerback safety.
Yeah.
Or other way around, probably.
I just can't. I hate the man.
Do you guys want... You guys haven't been able to talk about it since that Week 17 game. Dave, do you need to get anything off your chest about that last play with Chris Conte?
I think I've yelled at Conte every single week, so no, I think we got covered.
How you've called him a sack of shit every week on the podcast?
Can't help it. He's probably one of the worst safeties in the NFL, and it's on tape.
Yeah.
Every single week. It's disappointing plays.
And especially, I mean, if the season was going to end in any way, it might as well have ended with Chris Conte messing it up. Because that's it. And now he's gone. He's going to be gone. There's no way he's going to be on this team next season. If he is, I have serious questions that need to be addressed. But I still have some respect for Chris Conte sitting out there, not paying attention to the play call in his own head, thinking, you got this, Chris. You can do this. You're not going to fuck it up like everybody thinks you are. And then, of course, he fucked it up.
Well, and like Dave, you said, to kind of get what you were saying about going in all in on defense, rounds 1 and rounds 2. 2 mock drafts that I have up right now, and just focusing on the Bears. Todd McShay came out with his mock draft 1.0, and he had the Bears at 21. They're going to be at 14, but at 21 he had them taking Dominique Easley from Florida, defensive lineman, and in the Bleacher Report complete 7-round mock draft, at 14 they have the Bears taking linebacker C.J. Mosley out of Bama.
Yeah, I don't know. Linebacker is an interesting thing because we went out and we grabbed 2 linebackers last year.
Bostic being one of them.
Yeah, but the thing was, they looked absolutely clueless for a majority of the season. And I'm not ready to chalk that all up against them. I think a lot of it was the system. They didn't know where they needed to be because in the preseason they didn't see enough playing time. It was kind of like, oh, we're still going with the older guys. We'll give them glimpses, and then we're going to start the season with the veterans again. But due to injuries, they saw massive playing time.
Well, and does that really I can't put that blame on
I don't know. A lot of it's like
because,
you have no idea where you're supposed to be on the field, and it's apparent to everyone.
Well, what I put the blame on is not Trestman, not the players. I'm going to go with Mel Tucker because you look at Trestman. Trestman, yes, he's the head coach, but he's an offensive-minded head coach. So you're going to sit there and expect him to have a better grasp on the offense than the defense. Because of that, most of the, I'm going to say either pressure or the roles and the whatever you need to do to get that defense in order is on Mel Tucker because you are the main defensive mind on this coaching staff.
Yeah, and again, I don't know if Mel Tucker will even be on the Bears staff next year because of how
Would you
disappointing
fire
they
him
perform.
this offseason?
I think there's options out there to replace him, and I think our defense needs a revamp. It's stagnant, and we don't have the personnel to support the system anymore. We need to change things up and build around the players we do have.
Yeah, I think that's a good thought. And plus, we got to remember Mel Tucker coming from Jacksonville. I don't know why anyone thought anything good could come out of Jacksonville. But there's a problem. The players aren't playing well. They don't quite get the system. They're just not good with this system. It's time to change. I mean, obviously, you got guys like Peanut Tillman, Jennings, who are masters of this system, and it's going to be unfortunate for them a little bit to switch out of a Tampa 2. But at the same time, you got guys like Shea McClellan, who we're talking about how he needs to have a position change. What's he going to do? He can only be a 3-4 linebacker. And we know for a fact that Phil Emery and Mark Trestman both like 3-4 defenses. We talked about it this past offseason if there was a possibility of us changing to it. I think now is the time to do it if you're ever going to do it. You're in a revamp of your defense anyways. If this is where they want to go, just go and do it.
Yeah, and the only reason I could see them going linebacker is because they're worried about Briggs in the future because we already took the big hit with Urlacher this past offseason. So now, we went out and got another veteran linebacker. But due to injuries, we saw a lot of rookie. And then Briggs goes down. Briggs is near the end of his career too now, or end of his time in Chicago maybe. We don't know. he's always been the one to threaten to walk, demand trade, but he's stuck it out for the most part. So I don't know. It's an interesting idea, but I don't agree with it totally. I think we should definitely look for the top talent in the secondary.
I'm going to throw an interesting point out to you guys being the Bears fans. Dave, you said the Bears' first 2 rounds of the draft should go defense. The Bleacher Report complete 7-round projections had Bears going with C.J. Mosley, linebacker in the first round. They have them going cornerback, another position that saw huge injuries for the Bears. They have them taking the cornerback out of Ohio State, Bradley Roby. Do you like that? Or right below Roby, they have quarterback Zach Mettenberger on the board. Would you rather go cornerback and stay to your 2 defense, or take a stab and take a quarterback like Mettenberger just in case?
I've watched Mettenberger a lot through his college time, and I got to say I'm not massively impressed with his talent and his potential. I think I've seen pretty much the best he has to give me, and he'll be a backup in the NFL. I don't think he offers the that extra something to make him a starter, to make him a standout player. I just think he's missing it.
Yeah, I don't know what you need a quarterback in the second round for. You just signed Jay Cutler to a 7-year deal. He's not going to be your quarterback of the future unless you want him to sit there for 5 years. You're not going to probably trade the guy off because he's not going to get any time because McCown's coming back. Everyone's saying they want McCown back. So I think the quarterback, it's all fixed. Jay Cutler's your starter. McCown's going to come back up as your backup. Blanchard's still sitting there in the practice squad, as he always does, having fun. Besides that, that's set. Go fix.
I don't know. I could see us tossing like the highest we could draft a quarterback, fourth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mark and I have got this down.
But would that just be a quarterback that we drafted him, but he's probably going to get cut in training camp?
It's a developmental.
Exactly. It's something you want to take a shot on somebody to see what they can do. And that is, I think 4th round is okay for it. There's a lot of starters, though, that you could see coming out of this NFL draft, talent-wise, in the 4th round. So even that, I think there's some gems out there.
Well, that's like the one thing, and I was looking at the Bleacher Report 2nd round right now, and I know it's not the Bears, but it was interesting to me that they have the Dallas Cowboys in the 2nd round. They have them drafting another quarterback out of Eastern Illinois. It's like, do you just expect them to take the Eastern Illinois quarterback because of Tony Romo and because he was from Eastern Illinois? Do they really need to draft a quarterback?
There's no way Jerry Jones is drafting a quarterback, especially with Tony Romo having as much power over that team as he's been given now. He's not going to say, hey, guys, why don't you draft someone who could someday compete with me? That's stupid. No.
So before we move on, though, to head coaching jobs and coaching vacancies in the NFL, I've given my kind of opinion on the Cutler contract where I like it, but because of his injuries and the 7 years, I'm a little iffy on it. What do you guys think? Final verdict on the Jay Cutler 7-year contract.
Well, you had to do it. He's your best option. He's a good, solid quarterback. He's going to give you your best option to win. You want to keep this offensive group together. Unfortunately, $126 million looks like a huge number, but really, it's probably 4 years and $54 million.
Yeah, I think it's the going rate these days for a chance. And honestly, I'm perfectly fine with it as long as we just make sure he stays healthy. I think Trustman's done, probably the most ridiculous turnaround for an offensive line I've ever seen, from just being like a leaky sieve to going out, making the big moves in the offseason to get that offensive line stacked up, and then going drafting and having the balls to start 2 rookies out there. I just want to applaud him again for that. I'm sure Cutler has already given him like big hugs, but absolutely keeping Cutler upright, I think the money's well deserved, and I think he can absolutely take us to a championship.
Well, guys, now to look at a different aspect of the NFL. We looked at Cutler's contract. Now look at the coaching vacancies in the NFL. 2 got filled this week. Bill O'Brien leaving Penn State, going to the Houston Texans, and a guy who some people thought would go to the Houston Texans, Lovie Smith, goes back home to where he originated in Tampa Bay. And there's still a ton of coaching vacancies out there, but with these 2 being the first 2 to be filled, which one speaks more to you right now? O'Brien at Houston, Lovie Smith going back to Tampa.
I got to go with O'Brien to Houston. I think it was an interesting choice because this is a team that, was a year back. They were a playoff team, had such fantastic upside, and everybody kind of goes, well, this year, was it a fluke? I mean, which one was the fluke year? Their defense looks stacked. Had a couple injuries.
I'm going to throw out there, to be honest, with Houston, when you lose Arian Foster, and I mean, Ben Tate, he's Ben Tate, but he's no Arian Foster.
Hey, I will say in Madden that Ben Tate just broke some records the other day.
Yeah, but
right?
that's Madden.
So calm yourself.
That's Madden.
Regardless, the Texans team isn't too far out of the playoffs. Even with this 2-14 record, I think it's a deceptive record. I really believe that you drop in a quarterback and you're good to go. A little bit of change up will go a long way with that team. So I think Bill O'Brien being, the only risk there is that he was a coach under Belichick. He had that experience in the NFL. Went to Penn State, did a fabulous job there. I think he really got that program, dug them out of a deep, dark place. So I like the guy. I wish him the best, but I hope the curse of Belichick's under coaches doesn't carry through.
See, and that's the only thing with why I was so, I'm going to say, intrigued with Bill O'Brien leaving Penn State, because of when he came into Penn State, he had to deal with sanctions, and like you said, Dave, the school was in a very dark place. He, to me, brought them out of that. There were many players that stayed at Penn State because he said, I'm going to be the guy, I'm going to be the consistency, and after 2 years you leave. Now you got a ton of players at Penn State that are pissed because they're like, well, what? You said you were going to stay. You were our guy.
A month ago,
and now you're gone.
Early December, he said he'd be looking for a new place because of how Penn State's still divided between them glorifying Joe Pa and stuck in the past. He's like, no, I'm looking for opportunities. So it didn't come as like a huge drop in the ball. He mentioned towards it that he was looking for somewhere to go because of how bad of a community Penn State is right now, because they're still mourning Joe Pa. They're still glorifying him as the hero of the school. So I think they just need to move on. And that's the biggest thing, is he needs to move on. They need to move on. Think of it as that, you just get done with a long relationship. You just got to have a quickie in. Just that one little stop off.
He's the rebound coach?
He's a rebound coach.
I don't think he's the rebound coach.
It's all good with the rebound coach, though.
I do understand what you're talking about. And I mean, I look at his time at Penn State. 15-9 record. He went 10-6 in a Big Ten conference that, Dave, you're one of the ones that call the Big Ten one of the weakest conferences.
They were
in
this year.
College
Absolutely.
football.
Well, not the weakest, just not as strong as the SEC, the PAC, or the ACC even.
And I mean, I just look at even that 6-2 Big Ten season, his first year in 2012, where he basically shocked the entire conference by taking down Ohio State. And now he's going back to the NFL. And I'm sitting there going, okay, with Houston, can he come in and do a job much like many are describing the Detroit job, where put a head coach in, you're good to go? Or was this 2-14 season, was it real?
Yeah, I'm hoping it wasn't real. And you got to remember, his time at Penn State was also under death penalty rules, basically.
Yep.
So sanctions were just ridiculous.
No bowl games.
Even more impressive, the scholarship loss was. Whew. So he's an impressive guy, and I'm really interested to see what he can do in the NFL.
Well, not just that. Who did he come under? Who was his successor in the NFL? The Hood.
Yep.
The Hood, or the Dark Lord, as some would call him.
Yeah, I think that's interesting because, as Dave alluded to it before, the Belichick family tree is not a good one, actually. It doesn't result
I don't know.
in the best things.
I don't hate Manginius.
Manginius gone.
Yeah, but Manginius to me wasn't. It's the Cleveland Browns was the problem, not Manginius. It was the Browns.
Right, but then you still have to explain Romeo Crennel, Josh McDaniels, and Schwartz.
Although Josh McDaniels might have a second chance with the Browns.
Again, the Browns.
But
do we notice a common theme here?
Browns
But McDaniels didn't do bad in Denver. He just got. I feel
really?
like
Wait.
The
man who used a first-round pick on Tim Tebow.
I don't think it was him that used it. I thought it was Elway. Elway was in
Elway
love with
hates
Tebow.
Elway hated
Tebow.
Tim too. Yeah.
Okay.
You're
couldn't
saying
I thought it was the other way
you're saying
around.
that John Elway, fantastic quarterback extraordinaire, wanted Tim Tebow.
See, I
The
just
man who can't throw a forward pass without a wobble.
I feel like how many of those coaches were connected to the Browns? Cornell, Mangenius, maybe McDaniels. Maybe it's not them that's the problem, it's the Browns. I mean, look at the Chud. They fire the Chud after one bad season. What did you expect him to do? Super Bowl?
Well, he attached himself to the wrong quarterback. That's the whole problem there.
Well, I mean,
Or he didn't attach himself to a rookie quarterback that's not even a rookie yet.
to be
In
fair,
Johnny Manziel.
I think, yeah, well, that's an issue. That's a rumored issue, at least, that he didn't want Manziel, and that's why people in Cleveland were a little upset. Although Cleveland has also said they're not happy with any of the quarterback choices in this draft. Whether that's true or not, I guess you can't really be sure, but that was something that was reported earlier on in the season. For the Browns with Chud, I don't think he deserved to be fired, because really, you look at the quarterback, although, yeah, they've used a million quarterbacks, mostly because of injuries, but those quarterbacks were productive. They had fine numbers. Not great, but their numbers were fine.
Did we forget what Hoyer was doing before his season-ending injury?
And people were excited about the future with Hoyer. Maybe it wasn't going to be, huge long-term thing, but it
I
could
was
get
thinking
you
just about
somewhere.
this season, but right at that point, I was sitting there going, holy crap, do the Browns have a chance here?
Yeah, no, they definitely showed some sparks, and I think their quarterbacks at least provided, you got to see their offense move the ball. Between Josh Gordon emerging as an elite talent at wide receiver and Jordan Cameron showing tight end, if you give him the ball, that man can play football. And the one thing that I'm kind of interested to see in how they go is, they let Trent Richardson go, and it looks like they came out winners, and it kind of baffles me, because when I saw it, I was like, wow, the Browns just threw in the towel. They're done for the season. Why would they pull that trigger? And I'm sitting here watching, I'm like, well, they're not really losing too much. Their run game's still productive, and it doesn't look like Indianapolis is doing anything with them. So,
Well, and you got to look at the team. I'm looking at Hoyer. Look at the teams he beat. He beat the Vikings in the Metrodome. He came home and beat the Cincinnati Bengals in a 17-6 game, and then he got injured in the Thursday night game against Buffalo, where the Browns did win 37-24.
Sadness Bowl, to be specific.
The Sadness Bowl.
But, yeah, the Browns, it's an interesting situation. I mean, maybe they do go and grab Manziel. They're probably going to be up obviously they're not going to be one of those top guys, although some people want to say maybe they'll trade up with Texans. I don't know. I doubt it. But, yeah, they're one of those teams that can take, your second, your third quarterback in the draft. So it'll be interesting to see what exactly they do.
Well, and I mean, we've said that Josh McDaniels, one of the names rumored
Maybe
for the
he
Browns
brings Tim
job.
Tebow.
But another name, he was asked about it last night after beating Alabama in New Orleans. Oklahoma Sooner head coach Bob Stoops was asked after the game, can we expect you to go for the Browns job? And he said, you never know. And they said, is that all? And he said, sure. So, I mean, I look at this and him just kind of saying, you never know, but he's going to stay in Oklahoma. But we've seen coaches, Chip Kelly, say that he's going to stay somewhere and then bolt.
No, I think I'm hoping that he stays. He just seems like he's got that college coach swagger, that mentality.
160 and 39 in college. That's his record.
He's also got a little bit of high ranking there. I just think he's a better fit in college. He doesn't seem to me like that guy who could walk into an NFL team and just kind of take control over all the coordinators and lay it out. I don't know. It's a different coaching style between college and NFL. Some guys can do them both. Some guys can't. I just believe he's better off sticking to college. He's got a great school. He's got ridiculously good recruiting right now, especially after that big win. They already had a good class coming in, but it's only going to get better.
See, I agree, but if I had to choose between McDaniels and Stoops, I think I'd lean towards I'd lean towards Stoops, not McDaniels, because of his time in Denver. I think I look at McDaniels' time in Denver, and I think of that as a bad time because he linked himself to Tebow.
Won a playoff game, though.
I was going to say, okay.
Lucky.
Not lucky. Well,
the Steeler playoff game, is that the one you're thinking about?
The defense kept them in that game.
The overtime miraculous
Josh McDaniels,
Tim
for an
Tebow,
offensive
grace
coordinator,
of God.
set himself up with one of the toughest defenses of the year that year. They were absolutely playing out of their minds, and they even made Tim Tebow look good. I mean, that's fucking impressive. So I don't take too many shots. I just think he made the mistake going after Tebow based off of reputation instead of actual skill.
He thought that, hey, this kid's good in college, he's going to be good in the NFL.
That's not the way it works. And that's the only thing that kind of makes me worry about this young Browns team probably looking for a new quarterback, and probably whoever that new coach coming in is will be attached to that fate of the quarterback. So that does put a little scare into you considering his track record. But I still think he can come in. This is a great Browns defense, don't forget. And they've got, like I said, they got some weapons. I think that he'd be a great fit.
Well, I mean, we're getting to an issue, which is an issue for a lot of teams. The Texans, they need to take a quarterback. That coach is going to be attached to the quarterback. Same with the Browns. Same with your Vikings, Ricky. They're going to need a quarterback. Whoever comes in to coach for the Vikings, all of a sudden, that quarterback you take, if he fails, you fail, and you're out of here.
Well, and it's interesting because, I mean, I know with the Vikings, they've looked into two coordinators, and the Browns are looking into the same one. You have two defensive coordinators, one in Arizona. You have Todd Boyles and then Dan Quinn in Seattle. But on the Minnesota side, they also have Dan Quinn and Darrell Bevell, both coordinators from Seattle. And then Cleveland could lose Ray Horton, their defensive coordinator, if he signs with the Vikings, if the Vikings offer him the job.
And what would you rather do? Would you rather have an offensive or a defensive-minded coach for the Vikings?
I kind of feel like in the back of my mind, the reverse Lovie Smith effect with the Bears, where you bring a defensive guy in and you focus on the defense because the offense can just work. With the Bears, it was bring a guy in who's focused on the offense because the defense was fine. In this case, your offense is fine with just find a quarterback that's competent. You have AP, you have Cordell Patterson, you have Greg Jennings, who could just get you by, focus on that defense, make it one of the top 5 defenses in the league, focus that way instead of going with top offense and a medium, mid-range defense like we talked about with the Bears' plan of action.
I was going to say, 2 years ago, you guys had, apart from Adrian Pearson, just phenomenal record-breaking or close to record-breaking year. It was really that defense and smart quarterback play and just a heavy dose of the run, ground and pound.
AP did you expect him to have a record-breaking season every year? No.
I mean, especially coming off the injury.
Christian Ponder played well. He didn't have to play like Peyton Manning. He didn't have to be Tom Brady. He just had to not turn over the football.
Although he did just absolutely blow my mind in the playoffs that year.
Yeah.
I was completely stunned by the fact that he was able to make the throws. He was able to he was able to play a lot better than I had expected him to and had seen from him up to that
Consistency.
point.
That's what I want to see out of Christian Ponder. And this season, totally, Leslie Frazier has come out and said that Christian Ponder still has a chance to be an NFL quarterback.
But Leslie Frazier's out of a job.
Well, Leslie Frazier, I'm not even going to believe a word you said because if you believe he still had a shot, then why didn't you fucking stick with him? Matt Castle played well this year. Why the hell did you bring in Josh Freeman? Consistency overall at the position.
It's Pfeiffer, your special teams coach, making all the decisions according to Cluey, your old punter.
I wouldn't mind having, going back to your original one, I wouldn't mind having a defensive coach. But at the same time, I'm an offensive guy personally. I like the offensive guys because if I was a coach, I'd be an offensive-minded coach.
But when you got AD, you don't need much creativity. Yeah. You run the goddamn ball.
You run the ball. You maybe do some play action and throw the ball deep.
Sounds like you got the Texans' game plan.
Yeah, you just got to find the defense. And
almost mirror teams at this point, except I think they've got a little more talent.
The Texans are quite a bit better.
Yeah, they've got more talent on them. They just underperformed this year, really.
And the only other name that I would throw out there that I would wait. I wouldn't hire anyone yet because you have the defensive coordinator for the Panthers, Sean McDermott, and offensive coordinator Jay Gruden. You can't talk to them yet because they still have playoffs. Well, Jay Gruden could lose this week. You can talk to him.
No, he won't. It's okay.
After. He could.
But he won't.
He could.
But he won't.
But with McDermott in Carolina, they get a bye, so you got to wait 2 weeks, maybe even 3, to talk to him about the job.
Since nobody wants the Redskins job because no one wants to deal with Snyder, let's move on and talk about the Detroit Lions, another team in the NFC North that needs a new head coach. They need a lot of things, really.
To stop choking?
Yeah, I think people kind of assume that if you just get a good head coach, like the Lions are looking at Ken Wisenhunt, to just go in and make Stafford a legendary quarterback. And I think there's more to it than that. You still only have Calvin Johnson as your targets out there. You do have Reggie Bush as a runner, but is that going to carry over into next season, or is it going to kind of fizzle out?
But that can be fixed with the draft and getting the right guys. And I feel like when I hear many people say, oh, well, the Lions is this head coaching job where you can step in and expect to make the playoffs. It's kind of true because you do have a quarterback who's Matthew Stafford's a starting quarterback. You have Reggie Bush, who basically had his career revitalized this past season in Detroit. And when you look at that defense, yeah, you got to beef up the secondary a little bit, but just Ansah, Sue, Fairley, you have a tough defense in there. Yeah, they might be considered the dirtiest defense in the NFL. Sue might be considered the dirtiest player in the NFL. But they're still a good defensive front, and you can work off of that. It's not a complete, okay, I have to come in and completely just rebuild this team.
No, it is like basically it's a microwave-ready team. You just need to fill in a couple spots.
I like that comparison.
But I think a problem for the Lions, though, is essentially you're in this division where, and we talked about it in the preseason, things like that, the Bears are right there, the Packers are right there, the Vikings aren't too far off, even though it looks like the Vikings aren't too far off.
Right.
So, I mean, there's so much in this division that's just...
I think any one of these teams can walk away with a division any given year at this point. I think the Lions, what they really need is a strict head coach, somebody who can lay down the rules, because right now the team is immature and it's stupid penalties. You need somebody, a professional. You don't need one of these guys coming in.
Somebody that's not going to, put his hands on Jim Harbaugh at the end of the game.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be nice, but you need a professional. You need somebody who they respect and not somebody who's a buddy-buddy guy. Like the opposite of Rex Ryan is what we're looking for here.
What about a name that's been rumored, Tony Dungy?
Tony Dungy.
He fits that bill.
He is, and that'd be an interesting spot because Dungy is like old school NFL. He played it, he lived it, he understands NFL like not too many other people do in the world. Even it's just he's one of those interesting guys who gets the game.
Now, do you think though that Tony Dungy is really going to be completely adapted to the new kind of offense? Because the offense is not new offense, but NFL. The NFL is very different now. You can't hit quarterbacks. You gotta, be careful with your defense, your defenseless receivers, things like that. You're gonna throw the ball all the time, and he's gonna go against Jay Cutler. He's gonna go against Aaron Rodgers. You're gonna go against a lot of these pass-heavy teams. Is this something that maybe Tony Dungy is a little too far removed, where it's gonna take too long for him to catch up?
No, because look at where he's been. He's been at the desk every Sunday for NBC. It's not like he left football and forgot about what's changing.
He didn't go to Florida and go fishing.
But you're not coaching.
He's not getting his tee times up on Sunday.
You're watching football as one thing. You're actually down there coaching. That's a completely different scenario.
But I think that Tony Dungy's the kind of coach that can just jump. He can stop for a little bit and jump right in and never miss a beat.
Yeah.
That's how good he is.
I think that would be a really great fit for him and for the Lions. They get a disciplinary guy who comes in and just fixes up their defense. And all you got to do is give the offense a little something, a little push in the right direction, get them to settle down, these stupid false start penalties. I mean, it really is tragic how many penalties the Lions had this year. They were on them 100%. Like, it was just stupid mistake after stupid mistake costing them games. So I think he comes in, he sells them down, he straightens them out. You got a scary team up there, and they're right there ready to compete for the NFC North.
Well, what if they go with a different head coach? What if they go with maybe a Ken Wisenhunt, where he doesn't fit the bill you were saying of come in here, demand respect, get them to... I would say not the false start penalties. Like, they'd still have that little immaturity, but he's an offensive mind that's been to a Super Bowl as an offensive coordinator when the Steelers beat the Seahawks, and he was there with the Cardinals when they were robbed of a Super Bowl against his Steelers. He's been there. Could he be able to get the Lions there?
And you're not even mentioning his most recent job of fixing Phillip Rivers, which is fucking fantastic. Because everybody thought he was dead and done for, forgot about him on the West Coast.
Same thing. Wisenhunt can come into Detroit, and I can see him doing the same thing he did with San Diego. You say he fixed Phillip Rivers. What's one of the things they did? Got him a young wide receiver in Keenan Allen. You go out there, get a guy like the Bleacher Report complete 7-round projections that came out. Who do they have him going in the second round? Matthews out of Vanderbilt, who is the 4th-ranked wide receiver by ESPN. So you just get him a little something, a young receiver to take some pressure off of Calvin Johnson. And I think Wisenhunt could be a good fit. Not as good as Dungy, but a good fit.
I definitely disagree with you, Ricky, because I think they're not going to care there about what Tony Dungy says. Tony Dungy is removed from the NFL for a little bit, and yeah, he's out there commentating, he's giving his analysis, but he's still removed in coaching. And this is you can't just be out of the coaching job and then come into the most difficult coaching situation of a completely unorganized, dysfunctional, it's a mess. That defense is a mess, and it's going to be so hard for someone
really, that defense who is the best, I would just go out on a limb and say the best front four.
But it doesn't matter. I'm not talking about their quality. I'm talking about the fact that they're a dirty team. I'm talking about the fact that they think they can go and do whatever they want.
That can be coached.
Can that core, which has been bred in a culture
as long as if Sue had a head coach that wasn't like a fucking 6-year-old on the sideline,
it's too late, though.
Actually had some pull... You can come in there.
He was playing Jekyll and Hyde in his interviews, though. I don't know. I don't really trust the guy.
I'm not saying that it's all like, it's not Sue's fault completely.
Have been bred in this culture for too long.
But there can be the right head coach to come in and basically put the fear of God into him.
I don't think so.
And that's what needs to happen.
I think the way a coach like Tony Dungy will put the fear of God is he cuts somebody. He just straight up gets in there and says, all right, either cuts or you're getting traded because I'm not putting up with it. That's what'll do it.
What about another candidate that they're looking at in another former Indianapolis Colts head coach? He's been with the Ravens for the past 2 seasons as quarterback coach and OC, Jim Caldwell.
Yeah, I mean, that's a decent one, and obviously Caldwell should get some credit for the Ravens Super Bowl ring for sure, especially because Joe Flacco, a lot of people laughed when he said that he was an elite quarterback and that he could win a Super Bowl. But, Caldwell went out there and did it. I think your best bet for the Lions is Wisenhunt because what should you rely on for this Lions team? Megatron, Stafford, Reggie Bush. Ken Wisenhunt can go in there and foster that connection and make it so much better. And then you can rely on that because your defense, yes, it's good. It's a mess, and it's going to probably forever be a mess until that core gets shaken up. But you can ride that offense into the playoffs.
I kind of disagree with the terming of core shaken up. I think you just got to strengthen that secondary. And that's why with their first-round pick, I'd go with the top overall corner. I'd go with Justin Gilbert out of Oklahoma State. Great fit, and I mean, hey, you're helping a secondary that is obviously your weakest part of your defense. I'm not going to say especially Swiss cheese like I did earlier, but it's weak.
And especially concerning the quarterbacks that they have to go up against 2 times a year. It's one of those things that has been ignored for way, 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 way too long.
Well, guys, now to move to what's actually going on in the NFL, because the NFL's not over. The season's not done. The playoffs are beginning. And, of course, games start this weekend in the wild card. But I want to ask you guys one thing. I have my own. Who's your dark horse coming into this year's NFL playoffs?
Well, it's a little unfair. Mine's not exactly a dark horse, but it's who I think will go to the Super Bowl. And I've been riding this team since the very beginning. They are the hottest team in the NFL right now. They're on quite a win streak, and that's the San Francisco 49ers. Not a dark horse. I get it. But this is the team that will go in. Of course, I think they're going to lose to Peyton Manning and his Broncos. But this is the team that has the hot streak. That's what you need. It's been proven every year. You got to ride your momentum. That's exactly what this team is doing. They feel slighted because everybody's obsessed with the Seahawks just a little bit ways up north from San Francisco. So I think they've got a lot of fire under them, and it's going to push them up.
See, I don't know. I have two dark horses. One of them actually has to play your Niners this week. The Packers. The Packers lose Aaron Rodgers. Everyone's going, oh, wait, are they not even going to make the playoffs now? They beat the Cowboys without Aaron Rodgers, and then they beat the Bears with Aaron Rodgers. This team can now ride their starting quarterback possibly to a Super Bowl.
Well, there's no doubt Aaron Rodgers is the most altogether quarterback in the NFL, I want to say, when he's healthy. I mean, there's no one area where he is bad at. He's mobile, he's accurate, he's got a good arm. He checks all the boxes. So I think if there's any quarterback that can just carry a team on his back, we've seen him do it before. Now he's got Lacey, who is doing a little better. He's feeling healthy. He's got his swagger back.
He's got a bunch of wide receivers. Like
not
one
a
of the,
bunch.
One of the things that we didn't talk about that I just kind of put the dots together, the wide receiver that he threw the game-winning touchdown to against the Bears.
Cobb?
How much of the season did Cobb miss?
Well, I mean, Chris Conti. Let's remember that. He's not going to play Chris Conti in the playoffs.
I know that, but Cobb also missed a ton of time this season, too.
Yep.
Was on the like half IR.
And he completely underappreciated. Jordy Nelson had a monster year and was like the receiving core for the team. No love.
Mm-hmm.
No love. But yeah, I'm absolutely in agreement. I think the Packers could ride Aaron Rodgers to the playoffs. I don't think they will. I think the 49ers, like Mark said, will probably win it. That game at least. But I'd give them a fighting chance easily. This is no team to just brush aside.
Green Bay is going to be under 0 degrees.
It's a cold game. Rodgers kicks ass in cold games. That's one thing that's just a statement. It's like Drew Brees can't play outside. Aaron Rodgers can win cold games. My dark horse is a little interesting because they're a talented team, but they got one fatal flaw. Andy Dalton.
The Bungles?
Yeah, the Cardiac Cats.
Bungles.
Going with the Cardiac Cats on this one. I like the team. I think that just absolutely pushing talent out their butthole, every position. I mean, think about it.
Giovanni Bernard.
Gio Bernard comes out, and one of my preseason picks.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of gave you all a heads up. You guys should probably pick him up, But I love the team. I think that this team just completely is on Dalton's shoulders at this point. It's how well
That's a terrifying statement.
But even when he doesn't play well, they still seem to win games.
And fortunately, the Houston Texans aren't in the playoffs, so there's no one to beat them in the first round.
I was gonna say, you know who beat them the last couple times they go to the playoffs? Yeah. No Texans, no problems.
Well,
I think that this team has got what it takes.
Well, it's funny because all of our dark horses play on Sunday. I said I had two. My second dark horse is going up against your dark horse, Dave. The Chargers.
Yeah. No Chargers,
and the only reason I like the Chargers is because since 2009, the team that has beaten the Eagles in Week 2, Saints, Packers, Giants, and Ravens, have all won the Super Bowl. Why can't we make it 5 in a row?
The one team I do not want to see, I guess Packers excluded. I really just do not want to see this team progress. Is the San Diego Chargers.
Why? What do you got against San Diego?
They shouldn't have made it in the playoffs in the first place. That's why.
Yeah. But I mean, also, to me, it's just not a team I want to watch.
Well, I mean,
shrug your shoulders.
Not just because there should have been a penalty.
They shouldn't have played
because the Chiefs could have kicked a field goal and won it, but
also because the ball should have been fumbled.
Not even in their game. Miami had a chance to win the season 3 weeks
that went
ago.
their way.
A lot of chances
Miami
to win.
choked hard. I mean, there's so many things that fell just their way
Tannehill
to
was
get them
very
in.
distracted. He couldn't get his mind straight.
But no, I mean the Chargers. To me, what do you got against the Chargers?
They're just not a fun team to watch. It's just Philip Rivers,
so they're
and
not.
that's it.
They're not flashy. So
No, it's not even that they're
they got
not
Manti
flashy.
Te'o.
I don't care about Manti
You want
Te'o. I
to
don't
know
like
why
Manti
they made the
Te'o.
playoffs?
Imagine
It's
their
Manti's
girlfriend.
ex-girlfriend. Yeah.
Because there's 12 men on the field at all. Well, 11 men, one woman.
one girlfriend
Yeah,
on the
one
field at all
girlfriend on the
times.
field. But yeah, there's just nothing about the Chargers that I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see this. Where at least every other team has
Yeah,
something where I'm
but
like,
I mean,
okay, I would
like-
enjoy watching that.
But if it wins games, it wins games.
But it barely wins games and it shouldn't have won.
Hey, as long as you... Sometimes
You fall
the door
ass
just has
backwards
to
in
be
the
open.
playoffs. I don't believe in your team. I don't think you've got what it takes. And that's what I'm seeing out of San Diego. I think they start off pretty well. You know, Phillip Rivers, obviously he's back to the Phillip Rivers that we expected when we
With
initially
Ken
saw him.
Whisenhunt helping, like you said, revitalized him.
Yeah, I'm absolutely thrilled for the guy because people were writing him off like, oh, he's done for. They need to go out and reset this franchise as a whole. And poof, they're back in the playoffs. But it just, no, I'm not buying in. I'm sticking with the Cardiac Cats. I like the Bengals. Too much talent. Dalton will step up.
Well, and kind of look on now the other side of the playoffs. We have 4 teams with bye weeks in Seattle, Carolina, Denver, New England. Which team, I'm going to throw this out there, which team does the bye week hurt the most?
I actually think it hurts the Seahawks the most. They're going to be a little off. They don't have that same kind of momentum that my dark horse in quotes,
Yeah,
San Francisco 49ers.
just the hottest team in the NFL. No big deal.
They're going to ride it all the way. But yeah, I think it hurts them a little bit. Plus, the end of their season kind of slowed down a little bit. They had those couple of losses towards the end. I just think that right now you see them, and they're just slowing down. It's a little bit of a regression.
And you know what? Their offense is their weakness, and that's what takes the toll during this timeout. They lose a little bit of the timing. It takes them a while to get going in the first place, so you put a week off in between, you got to wonder.
Well, and it's because of that, I kind of put a little red flag on the Panthers. I know they're the hottest team coming into, out of the teams that have the bye, they'd be the hottest team in football, but you come into a bye, and sometimes when everything's clicking, you take a week off, and sometimes things just don't work how they used to.
Well, first of all, Ricky Club. Second of all, the Panthers, they got a great defense out there that's going to be fine. They will be able to shut down other teams and keep the score low. It gives time for a guy like Cam Newton to get out there and kind of get things going. Plus, the team, they're a scrappy kind of team. They don't win pretty. So the Panthers are not going to be that off guard by the fact that they're not starting off strong, because that's how the Panthers play. They're always playing to keep up with that defense, because that's where the specialty is, and then Cam Newton goes out there. He's Superman. He's going to get it done.
What if they play your dark horse in the 49ers?
Then they're going to have a real rough time out there.
You think so?
No, I think those
And
teams...
the only way that would happen is if the Saints and the Niners win this week.
Yeah, that's a team. Those two teams actually are going to match up very well. Very strong defenses, mobile quarterbacks who can throw the ball, and some good running games.
Let's be honest. They're pretty much identical teams. It's the 49ers, Carolina Panthers, and Seattle. It's all the same structure of a team. It's the same key pieces. Like you said, mobile quarterback, that strong defense, the ability to run the ball. I mean, it is just in core. Okay, that worked for them. We should build around that. Same way.
It's funny how it worked for those 3, but Washington didn't get the message.
Well, you know, when your knee is, like, not there, it's a problem. And your quarterback's also like, wait, I'm not everybody's favorite and they don't love me? I don't know how to play quarterback anymore.
Well, and I mean, going back to the Panthers, the reason why I'm kind of weary about them coming off the bye is because, do I expect them to lose in their first game? No. But at the same time, it could happen, and the bye can get you.
Since we were talking about these mobile quarterbacks, we got to talk about Jameis Winston now. We got to finally get to it, because Jameis Winston's going to go out there and he's going to win himself a national championship. It's going to happen.
No, he's not.
It's going to happen.
Nope, I'm
Auburn's
sorry.
going to go out there and just wipe the floor with the Seminoles.
Who's Auburn?
Not quite that either. Not so fast.
Dave sitting in the middle.
Dave needs it to be a very close game so that way Auburn can win by a fluke.
Exactly, because this is the year of the underdog in the BCS.
Why? Give me some reasons.
You got Georgia losing to Nebraska. Absolutely shouldn't have happened. This Georgia team, I mean, first off, do I need to say SEC? SEC.
Well, not just that. I mean, Nebraska was a team early on.
Yeah.
Oh, Taylor Martinez, he's going to be our guy. And then it's like, oh, we need a new quarterback. Now it's a freshman.
Yeah. And then you end up the Stanford loss to Michigan State. Everybody was like, oh, they're not a real good conference. Stanford's got this covered. Pac-10's so strong this year.
Defense. That's all I'm going to say. Defense. That's why they won that game. Michigan State defense.
Yep. Absolutely bruised it out, and it was a fantastic game to watch. And then you end up with the Bama loss to OK State. And that one, the first drive was like, Bama's like, this is for real. We got this shit. We're just going to shove it down your throat. And after that, their defense just disappeared.
Well, I guess it's true what they say. I mean, the Iron Bowl is all that matters in Alabama. Ever since Bama lost to Auburn, it's like, whatever. We don't have to play anymore.
Yeah,
we're going to sulk.
They just kind of gave up on it.
They're upset because they got beat by a fluke.
And that's what's going to... I would be fine if that happened to Florida State on Monday.
I honestly think that's what... I honestly think it. Because Auburn is just getting by, and they're going to do it again.
The last two
teams...
keep it close. Just look at the SEC championship game. How defensively locked was that game between Alabama and Mizzou early on? And then look at the ACC championship game where famous Jameis against Duke came out flat-footed. Duke could have went up big on Florida State, but couldn't capitalize on their offense. If that happens again on Monday, Auburn's going to take that chance, and they could be up 14-0 like that.
Absolutely, and that's my whole thing is this is probably going to be a close game. I do have Alabama. I'm sorry. I'm used to just saying Alabama and national title.
Same state.
No, I'm just saying Alabama national title. Alabama national title. No, Auburn. I have them coming out, taking an early lead in this game. But Florida State's going to stick with them the whole game. And like you said,
who wins?
Auburn's going to win it.
Okay.
And it's going to be close. I've got this one coming down to the wire.
I like this Auburn team. Florida State, to me, I don't know. I haven't really been a huge Seminole fan this season.
I feel like for Florida State, this is a great chance for them because famous Jameis, he's going to lose it. You know, he's going to lose all his top weapons. This is a team right now that's all about to go over to the draft.
They are loaded.
This is the time to do it for them. And famous Jameis, he's done everything else. He's looking ahead to when he can start his baseball career as well as his football career, Bo Jackson style.
I like how you bring up Bo Jackson and he's playing against Auburn, but I don't think anybody could beat. Only Bo knows. Only Bo knows.
Very true. But yeah, I think this right now, Jameis is on top of the world, and I think he's going to finish off this season still on top of the world. Everything he says, he's got that big-ass smile on his face. You can tell that right now everything is going his way.
What about Trey Mason, running back of Auburn? I expect him to have a huge game for the Tigers.
Yeah, Auburn's going to run for like 300. I mean, it's just what they do. They're going to get the lead, and they're just going to keep pounding the ball, and they get these ridiculous runs where it's like, oh, it should be like a 2-yard gain. Oh, no, he broke tackle, and he slid open to a gap, and he's gone. Fuck.
The last two opponents Auburn has played, Bama and Mizzou. That doesn't even... The last opponent alone that Florida State played in Duke doesn't even compare to what Auburn saw in Mizzou in their last opponent.
Yeah, I was going to say, really, when you're looking at Florida State versus SEC schools, you don't really get a great view. So I'm really curious to see this matchup.
And who did Duke lose to in their bowl game? Oh, yeah, that's right, an SEC team.
Johnny Manziel is phenomenal. Can I just say that?
Yep.
That play.
You can say that.
Sports aren't. It's never going to go away because it was ridiculous. Manziel's just a playmaker, flat out. Who cares about his height? The guy plays football. He lives football. You put him on the field. Yeah.
Football.
You put him on the field, and he's just like, nope, this is my natural home. Off the field, yeah, he's got personality issues. It's called being a young kid with a ton of money. He grew up with the money, so it's not like he's like waiting to cash that NFL check. No, dude's a multimillionaire already because his family's rich. So he's got the personality. He's got the cash. I just think he's just the next big thing waiting to hit the NFL, and I can't wait to see him.
You know who agrees with you? The Cleveland Browns. So much so they're willing to fire a head
coach. The Chud.
You know what? I think he could turn around the factory of sadness. I think he's the guy to do it.
Johnny Football?
Yeah, if he
I've
goes.
been saying I want Johnny Football to play in
Can you
Cleveland.
imagine Johnny Football with Jordan Cameron and Josh Gordon out there?
I mean, I love it.
It's the heart of football out there in Ohio.
It's kind of hard for me to see the Browns as good, but that's a
ways down.
That's the type of thing I see where you just don't see change. But getting back to the national championship game, I want to point out one more thing.
All right, bring it.
Ranked teams that each school has beaten. Florida State beat 25 Maryland, number 3 Clemson, number 7 Miami, number 20 Duke. Auburn. Yeah, they lost to number 6 LSU, but they beat number 24 Ole Miss, number 7 Texas A&M, number 25 Georgia, number 1 Alabama,
They're frauds.
and number 5 Missouri.
Alabama's nothing but frauds.
An SEC championship game wasn't a fraud. Yes, the Bama game might have been because of that last play, but then they came out in the SEC championship game and said, hey, we can play with anybody.
And you got to remember that LSU, you got to almost think this Auburn team is 2 teams. It was like the early year while they're still trying to put the pieces together and get everything locked in place. And then after that LSU game, they just flipped the switch, and they're a totally different team. You can see from their offensive production, their defense stepped it up and shut teams down. I love the team. They've really taken off in the second half. Usually you don't get to see this kind of development in college. It's like what they are at the beginning of the year is what they are at the end of the year kind of situation. And I think that's why, the whole ranking teams is so messed up. But this Auburn team, we watched them progress as the season went, and they truly got better. And it just looks like they came together as a team.
Better and luckier.
Is this going to be the best national championship we've seen in a while?
It's hard to say.
We've seen a lot of blowouts lately.
It's hard to say, but I'm hopeful. I'm extremely hopeful. This Florida State team can throw up points with anybody, but this Auburn team, they just got something special about them this year. I got that feeling.
I mean, if you count the 3-score 21-0 win that Bama gave LSU in 11, the closest game we saw was, when who was in the national championship? That's right, Cam Newton and Auburn when they beat Oregon. That was our closest one at 22-19. They won on a field goal.
That was a good matchup, too.
Yeah.
That was a good game.
Besides that, we have to go all the way back to, I'm looking, 1 touchdown, and that was in 2004, LSU over Oklahoma, 21-14. Besides that, it was the next year, 55. It was vacated from USC, 55-19 against
Vacated
Oklahoma.
nothing. They won that shit.
Yeah, it still exists. It didn't disappear.
Yeah, it's not like they didn't just stomp over that team. That game happened. We all watched it. I enjoyed the fuck out of it.
Well, because you're a Trojan.
Well, I was a pretty big fan of the Trojans in the early 2000s. Pete Carroll fan, and just they shit stomped teams.
But I want Auburn to win, but I want it to be a close game because I think the BCS championship game is.
Do you want them to get right in the last year?
Yeah, I want it to be a good game for the last year before we go playoff because, if there was a playoff system this year, you have Florida State, Auburn, Michigan State, Alabama. That's our playoff.
It was a really good playoff. Really good playoff.
So, me and Dave, we got Auburn. Mark, you got Florida State.
I'm going on Florida State.
And that's going to do it here for the Onside Kick this week. I want to thank you guys all for listening. Check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/The Onside Kick. Hit us up on Twitter at Onside Kick Real. Hit the subscribe button, the like button, leave a comment down below. And as always, have a good day, everybody.